their own rights.
There you go.
But you can't get in a room with Charlamagne because iHeart controls him. You can't get in a room with this controls him. Now you're talking to companies. Now you're not unionizing. We back talking to the companies.
A historic $200 million transaction is signed by Charlamagne. I apologize, but I need to take a closer look at the agreement because a lot of people are expecting me to commend him. Over the past nearly 10 years, Joe Budden and Charlamagne have engaged in pissing competitions. When Joe Budden signed a contract with Spotify that would place him on level with Charlamagne, the two were no longer peers. When Joe Budden's contract with Spotify came to an end, Charlamagne and Budden would soon get into a verbal sparring match over the future of the broadcasting sector. Charlamagne used to make fun of Joe Budden's lack of negotiation skills.
Is a person who knows his worth but doesn't know how to properly negotiate it. Because if you keep doing deals with various corporations and you keep getting trash-ass deals, that's on.
However, Joe Budden's revelation that Charlamagne attempted to negotiate a contract with Spotify that didn't necessarily work out and that Spotify didn't appreciate him the way he believed he should have is something that no one ever really remembers.
Search the market. You tried to get the number that you thought you were worth. You didn't get that number. I know that because I'm in all of the rooms before you. I'm very aware of what happened when you attempted to go to Spotify for your network deal. They told you to suck dick. I thought that was wrong.
However, I truly wish to approach the transaction critically, and I believe it's crucial for this channel to do so, because after he signed the $200 million deal, a lot of people demanded that I make some sort of apology and respond with, "Oh my God, he's defeated Joe," or "This is the biggest deal ever." Even though that's a huge deal, I find it hard to understand how a firm with a $600 million market capitalization could award Charlamagne $200 million up front for just performing. It's nearly a given that the contract will be full of incentives, similar to football players who must meet specific requirements, avoid injury, and perform at a high level in order to earn the money. However, this bargain has additional features. What about the reality that some of these Netflix-bound shows will now be isolated, making them less discoverable? Yes, Rogan was successful when he switched to Spotify, but when he was unable to continue using YouTube, he lost a lot of his momentum. How about Mero and Jesus? Recall them? They were among the most popular podcasts in history. Indeed, they would visit Vice and do all of that, but Vice consistently posted their footage on YouTube. Their brand didn't truly start to suffer until they moved to Showtime. Their content was no longer available elsewhere other than on Showtime. They seemed to have committed suicide by using premium cable. However, there have also been additional exchanges between Charlamagne and Joe Budden. The demise of the need to know was one of them. Joe Budden would now remark something like 40% of podcasters are going to disappear, or something similar.
Predict that 40% of podcasters will be done in the next few months.
Months?
Months. Most of them are done right now. They're just not announcing it. They're not saying it. They're holding on by the thread of their skinny. Yeah, I see it. I can see it. They finished already. These niggas are doing everything but podcasting. Niggas ain't at B&H no more.
Charlamagne would then launch into a tirade that specifically addressed this kind of claim.
And how, the podcast industry is dying. No, it's not. Not in no way, shape, or form. Now, I will say this. You niggas starting your little hip-hop shows. Okay. Everybody don't want to hear from y'all, but y'all got to be patient. I love the Need to Know podcast. Need to Know should have just been a little bit more patient.
The two have recently engaged in multiple commentary exchanges. It seems as though these two went to war and came to the conclusion that neither side would gain from it. As a result, they began to wage a Cold War in which they would disparage one another's ideologies. The marketing headline is another important aspect of this Charlamagne agreement. Frequently, we take the headlines at face value and don't challenge them. However, it's frequently the deal's marketing. And in a conversation with academics, Ian Schwartzman, Joe Budden's manager, would say this.
There's a difference between acquisitions and marketing. Hold on. You can use an acquisition to also front as a marketing tool.
Smart.
I pay a guaranteed fee for academics to come on, broadcast or live stream twice a week for the next 2 years. That's also a box I check for marketing.
Sure.
You go online,
That is true.
you make headlines.
Right.
How much less do I have to spend on retail advertising?
Now, I also want to emphasize how revolutionary this is for anyone to carry out. However, I don't want to come across as a hateful person. I'm sure you're thinking, Danny, you are a hater, while you listen to this. However, that's totally okay. When has Charlamagne actually disclosed the specifics of a deal? This is another important question. This is, in my opinion, a clear reaction to Joe Budden's Patreon article from the New York Times. Additionally, although Forbes used to be a magazine that could be accepted at face value, it has grown some reporting wings that I wouldn't necessarily say are the greatest. Additionally, they didn't delve too far into this transaction. I firmly think that all they received was a partnership in which Charlamagne will be under intense pressure to perform to the best of his abilities. Many of you commentators will be criticizing me right now, but let's wait a few years to see if this relationship with Netflix turns into something truly exceptional. Additionally, I wanted to revisit my idea that the podcast industry would suffer from content silos to Netflix. Let's take a closer look at Julian and Joe Budden's recent discussion about Spaces.
Charlamagne's big deal. Or what are the terms of it? Aren't things moving to Netflix? Like, what is happening?
You sound like Joe.
I mean, I'm just not gonna. If you give me the context beyond the 200 million, then I'll be able to. I don't know. I don't know what does it mean? What's up with the Netflix thing? Like, is there shows moving to Netflix? What is that?
I don't know. I wasn't involved.
Your old job is going to Netflix.
No, I know. I think I saw that in a headline, and I don't get that's a terrible move. YouTube has a significantly larger reach than Netflix. Like, the ownership of, from what I saw, again, in like a 100 word, summary, from what I understand, they will no longer own their YouTube content. They gave up video rights, which again, I know we're speaking. Well, I'm saying that's what the article was.
Turns
given.
out
They don't own the YouTube rights, and the full video migration is going to Netflix, a platform with lesser reach than YouTube, and just like not. I just think like it's obviously it's very financially beneficial for Charlamagne, because the 200 million, that's a great headline, flashy number. But is this move, I think it's a bit advantageous for like the shows that have been brought into this deal as a part of it. Like, you don't
believe in the content?
I just don't think, it's not even like I'm singling out Rory and Maul. I'm saying, does this really benefit any of those shows that are now moving from YouTube, which is much more user friendly, in like lower bar of entry, to a Netflix,
We still have
where
to
there's
wait
more
and see.
barriers. But I don't get, like, again, I don't know there was like 8 or 10 shows that are all moving. We can take this beyond the Rory and Maul thing. I just don't get why. I mean, I guess that's what happens when you don't own your shit. Like, I guess that's when it's up for sale, they can do that. But I just don't think that's good for those shows. I think it's good for Charlamagne and like him personally.
Tasha K hinted that Charlamagne's contract is an if I deal. If I do this, if I do that, I will get to the $200 million. But I know we have to take her statements with a grain of salt, considering her conflict with Charlamagne.
I'm calling it a $200 million if I deal because it's valued at that. My house can be valued at $1 million, but somebody's only gonna give me maybe 600 for it. But being that Netflix is, based on downloads, which means if he's moving 90 podcasts with him over to that deal, then that means all the podcasters under the Black Effect Network is gonna have to become salesmen. They're no longer podcasts, they are a Salesforce team. You're not gonna be renewed as talent, you're renewed as a network. There's a difference, which is a big deal for you. Let's hope it's a great deal for the podcasters that work under you. Maybe they'll get some lights, some budgets, some couches, some plants, some audio microphones, some cameras, and not just $1,000 a month to go talk.
Noting that they were unable to reach $200 million for Charlamagne due to the magnitude of iHeart as a business. Now, it's crucial to keep in mind that all of the previous major podcasting deals depended on you actually owning your property. Gimlet Media, Bill Simmons, and Rogan are all property owners who were paid to carry out the advertisements. This is the first significant instance in which Charlamagne doesn't appear to truly own what he is contributing. It's likely that he will have to wager against the future. Furthermore, as everyone is aware, wagers might not come true. But listeners, tell me what you think. What is Joe Budden's next move? What is the next action of Charlamagne? The $40 million annual valuation is just too absurd. I communicate with the audience twice as much as Joe does, almost like Charlamagne. Additionally, listeners, please don't think of me as someone who despises Charlamagne and wants to see him fail or anything. I've always believed that Charlamagne is a media legend. However, I also believe that he has been among the least entertaining of the media legends, including Starr, even Joe, Wendy Williams, and Howard Stern. I simply don't think he should be at the top. In terms of the industry, I therefore view him very differently than many others. I therefore always take his skill to make headlines with a grain of salt. This is another headline-winning move, in my opinion. Charlamagne is going back to the drawing board and claiming that he has one of the biggest deals ever, which doesn't seem to fit with the previous structures of the last few deals. This is similar to the previous 5-year deal that highlighted having a podcast network at a time when podcast networks were really valuable. Everyone says, I'm not going to question this $200 million, so questioning the transaction would be like jumping out on a ledge. $200 million is just that, $200 million. What happens, though, if only 10% of that $200 million agreement is completed? What happens if iHeart thinks, oh my goodness, this is awful. This is not what we will do. You know what? Let's end this. Let's reorganize. In fact, Tasha K had a valid point. I am aware that many people will claim that Tasha K is Tasha K, but she countered, look at Kevin Hart. He made agreements with, I think, serious people, but they didn't work out. I must thus take all of this with a grain of salt. Things don't have to be taken at face value. And as he took his winning lap, Charlamagne would congratulate Chick Smooth, whom he seems to follow and who speaks the truth.
Till I find him. You know how I like Chick Smooth? Chick Smooth is somebody I really enjoy listening to on YouTube because Chick just got an intellectual curiosity about things. Chick don't, get on there and act like he know what the fuck he talking about. Like he just reports what he sees, gives an opinion on it, and keeps it moving. Like he don't act like he's some type of industry insider, who has sources. Shut up. You ain't got no goddamn sources.
I think Shake's move does fantastic work, but it was obvious that this was part of his plan to target other YouTubers who don't share certain stories about him that he finds interesting. I believe he has always been somewhat cunning in his actions. Charlamagne has always been skilled at undermining by implying anything unfavorable or raising questions, then deceitfully claiming that it is merely an opinion. In my opinion, one of the most cunning haters in the game. However, he is simply incredibly effective and adept at identifying himself with movements that shield him from criticism of any kind, and we just witnessed that. For example, there will likely be repercussions from people accusing me of being a hater, and all of the Charlamagne Avengers will band together to support him. It's not because they adore Charlamagne, they adore the chances he gives them. The bottom line is that. Furthermore, I'm not simply here to claim that Joe Budden is superior to him. Joe Bud also needs to make some decisions. I believe I've been portrayed as supporting Joe Budden in these podcaster wars, but I've always believed Joe was a more talented performer. When it came to rocking the mic as a broadcaster, he was 1,000 times more entertaining. I've been steadfast about that. And I've thought the same thing about Starr. I've felt that way about Wendy. I've felt that way about a lot of people. Even though I believe that many people have performed better on television than Charlamagne, I won't always choose Charlamagne. I will give it up when Charlamagne does something that, in my opinion, is concrete and offers real deal structures rather than just a big headline that screams $200 million. However, this seemed more like the same thing to me. Furthermore, I don't give a damn about the comments. And since he is not a member of Charlamagne and the Breakfast Club, I do believe that he will never reach $200 million unless he is striving to score a lot of goals. However, please share your thoughts with me. Tell me what you think. I believe that a large number of individuals will concur with me. Many people in the industry think, what? This is just nonsensical. I am aware that Joe Budden praised the agreement on his show, but in my opinion, that is just performative, and he is aware that he cannot truly express his opinions without coming across as a hater. In a few months, or possibly a year or two, he will give you a double back and expose his true thoughts. Just consider its optics. Joe Budden has never given someone so much praise. This demonstrates how PC the Joe Budden podcast has become, to the point where he must now follow everyone else's lead. He used to be able to express his opinions honestly, but these days he tries to hide his true self. This is the person who claimed that Charlamagne was merely an employee. Even though he has nothing, he is saying all of this.